My favorite thing about Jumpstarts in general is every day is a new day. The Innovatrium was basically designed to help organizations in a very short period of time start to get traction or momentum on an innovative idea.
Symphonies are currently in a very critical situation in which many of them are facing bankruptcy as a very real possibility. And Detroit Symphony is one that has actually gone through that crisis.
The DSO's challenge wasn't really inventing anything, it was really developing a new solution, a business model, a new way of operating. So when they came to me, I thought, well gosh, this will be a great opportunity to take some of our students, some of our faculty, some people that are our alumni, put them together and help them develop new sources of revenue and expand the reach of the Detroit Symphony Orchestra to a whole new audience. Now, in order to do this, there's a few rules. The first rule, have fun. We have to have fun. If we're really going to come up with anything, we're going to have some energy here. I would describe what we do here in the Innovatrium as making stone soup. So if you think about that great children's story, Stone Soup, about the three wily soldiers who come back from the war and they take the big cauldron and they set it in the city center and they fill it with water and they put a stone in it. And so they all come out and look at this and they go, what are you doing? And the soldiers say, we're making sumptuous stone soup. And one villager will say, well, have you ever thought about putting carrots in it? And then there's potatoes and chickens and cabbages and somebody's got a fiddle and they're all having a great time. And of course the stone soup is a ruse. It's really that everybody, by contributing something, a little bit of something that's quite different, makes something quite extraordinary. And that's exactly the process we're going through. We're making stone soup. Now, there are really only 4 things you have to do to be able to make innovation happen in an organization. Number 1, the first step and the most important step and the most difficult step is coming up with a high-quality target. So we have to have something we can hit. It's got to be beyond what we're doing today, but it can't be impossible. So this whole notion of go big or go home, most of those people have already gone home. Most people don't start with a real good target. Either the scope of the target is way too big, they try and boil the ocean and extract gold, or it's way too small and specific. It doesn't leave any room for kind of interesting ideas to come out of this. So the object is we're trying to create forward momentum. So we're going to try and do smaller things that get speed and momentum for us so we can do bigger things. There are all kinds of things going on in the world that are creating trends. And the point is, if you really want innovation, you have to anticipate the trend. Not get on the trend that's currently popular, but get on the trend that's going to happen sometime in the future.
What about if we sell our capabilities to someone like Google?
I think there's potential for people who experience a live webcast that can then download the audio only afterwards.
You know, the whole idea of going to the circus was dying. And what Cirque did was it made the audience participate in the Cirque. Maybe a trend is that people are viewing and participating somehow in the art. Remember, we don't have to be specific. We're just saying, what is it we're seeing going on? We also talked about other types of trends. Think about what's happening with social media with things like LinkedIn and Facebook. Think about what's happening with aggregators of media like Hulu or Netflix.
Think about the explosion of YouTube. People now being able to not only produce their own stuff, but also curate it. And it's creating this tension between local versus global content, this idea of access.
We talked a bit about what happens at a TED event, and that it's not just you come and hear a speaker, you don't just come for a concert, you stay for an evening event.
But I think it offered some really interesting opportunities for the DSO to think about, maybe we don't have to build this market all our own. Maybe we can take these ideas that we've got and put them into markets that are already being built by other media providers and distributors. Talent is everything. And boy, we got a lot in this room, so we're lucky today, but we can even be better. The second thing you really need to do to make innovation happen, to really make stone soup, is you have to enlist deep and diverse domain experts.
I had the fun opportunity of actually curating the team that was going to work with the DSO. So with them, they were definitely looking for something digital, something cutting edge, and something with a bit of a sustainable business focus, but that didn't necessarily drive us to look for people that had experience in that space. So we had people from engineering to business to design, young undergraduate students, all the way up to very experienced professors and industry professionals. All across the board, we were able to tap into the idea of what could we offer the Detroit Symphony Orchestra.
So the notion is, given what you're trying to do, we have to have expertise in forming the team and expertise on the team itself to do this. So let's go around and what kind of people do we need?
Who's done this well with regard to advising, right? How's Netflix making it happen?
Who's our audience? We need somebody who's good at analytics.
And then what is it that they like? What sites do they go to? How
Somebody
do
who
they
can maybe
use-
create some profiles of like our users.
Innovation really happens at the edges of disciplines. It doesn't happen inside of it. If it did happen inside, it would happen with standard operating procedures. So you've got to have somebody who maybe has a background in finance, and they're talking to somebody who's a background in media. They're talking to somebody who's a background in classical music. But I want to add something that people get wrong all the time. It's not an amateur sport. If you're trying to make a heart valve or a medicine or make something happen with the classical music audience, somebody actually needs to know their part of that puzzle.
The newspaper industry has gone through something very similar to this. So somebody from like maybe the New York Times, where their market has gone from distribution to online, would be a great advisor to have.
The music industry overall is struggling in this area. They also are well versed in what it means to make money on a product that people expect to be free. And I think that ultimately that's what you need to be looking for.
Innovation is not about alignment. Alignment is the death of innovation. What you need to have is constructive conflict.
To me, you could easily have like a person who's like a front-end developer and they kind of do both.
So I want you to kind of point me in the direction I'm going to figure it out. The younger generation learn it from each other.
And that's why we have like TEDx receptions or TEDx after party, because I really care how you started and why you started. I want to talk to you for an hour and then tell my friends.
It's because when people don't agree, we have to come up with new ideas, synthetic ideas, hybrid ideas. So the notion of we're all getting along and we're all moving the same direction, that's great if you want efficiency, but if you want breakthrough innovation, you need to have deep and diverse domain experts with some polite pushing and shoving. So somebody in your group is going to say something that's really crazy or stupid. Your response has to be, that's interesting, write it down. The third step is the step that most people associate with jumpstarting innovation or making stone soup, and that is taking multiple shots on goal. I think it's a great metaphor, because if you like to play soccer, you'll notice whoever wins the game is whoever gets more shots on goal. So the key is not to avoid failure. The key is to accelerate it. In the innovation game, most of what you do isn't going to work. So what you want to do is we want to take a very wide array of approaches, give it very little money and very little time, because what you're trying to get is real information about what actually is going to work. So you're moving beyond the theoretical. So step one, we're going to have to create lots of ideas.
Okay, so it's a reality show.
Backstage at Orchestra Hall. Oh yeah, and the reality show.
24/7 on-demand player.
Maybe it's like you see your motions and the real conductor's motions are going on, so you can see where you messed up.
You need to start doing things to make innovation happen. So if you just plan, everyone's stuck in the planning cycle, people aren't doing things. They're not prototyping, they're not testing markets, they're not seeing the reality of the situation. You've got some really good ideas here. They're not fully formed, some of them are a little bit woobly, some of them need a little more work, but you've got some really good ideas here. Here's the next step. I'm going to have each team pick one idea from the opposite team. And what you're going to come up with is you're going to take these two ideas and you're going to build a new idea. You're going to create a different idea. It's going to have a baby. You're going to get together and have a baby is what you're going to do.
So if you gave them all Google Glass that were linked to one another.
Oh, that is so cool.
So like you have no idea who you're partnered with, but like you're seeing the stage, but then also seeing it from their perspective while they're on stage.
And that gives people a reason to keep coming back. So we have 30 concerts and they are constantly rerunning. They can come back and watch that same concert. They log in and they say, oh, this is playing, but I can do this time.
I think almost all of the end projects were these kinds of experiments. So think about it for a minute. They're going to try and create like a Disneyland experiment.
We would like to welcome all of you to DSO Land, the musical adventure park.
DSO Atrium could be the Vimeo for the high arts. It's a place that really fosters the classical arts.
Because there is no data on the future where innovation happens, there's a lot of ambiguity. There's a lot of things we need to learn very, very quickly. So it's very important that these don't have too long of a horizon and that they're not too expensive and they're not too Homeric, right? And if they are very large projects, it's important to chunk them down into manageable segments so that you can really see what's going to work and not work. So this isn't theoretical. Who wants to work on this experiment? So the object is we're going to move from doing something theoretically to actually doing it. Well, the fourth step, which I think is actually one of the most important steps, is you have to learn from your experience and experiments. Think about all the people you know who have failed, but they never get any smarter. So you have to do the after-action review where you bring everybody together, and you're doing this for a few reasons. One, you're trying to gain real information. So it's not theoretical information, it's really what works and what doesn't work, and most importantly, why? Why doesn't it work? So the object is, if it's not working, instead of trying to fix it, move on and build on what is. Ride what moves. The second is you have to make adjustments. I love football, I love Michigan football, and I love the idea of there's a halftime, and you take all your players and you go back to the locker room and you say, okay guys, what do we need to do more of? What do we need to do less of? What do we need to start? What do we need to stop? What do we need to continue doing? And then the final part is you want to get smarter. What kind of simple rules can you divine from this so that the next time you start with high quality targets, you make a full lap. The next time you do it, you now have additional ideas about what actually works in your organization. So now we go back to the top of the model and we adjust our target. So the object is the first pass is always the hardest one. The second pass gets a lot easier, and by the time you're on your third pass, it's a cakewalk. I would anticipate that the DSO is going to learn that it's much harder to make a global market than it is to make a local market. I think the other thing is that having great music and being a great distributor of music is a very different thing. So I think one of the things they're going to learn is that trying to do this themselves, trying to sell it themselves, might not be the best of all strategies. The first question is, who are you apprenticing yourself to? Who is it that you can learn how to do this from? I'm a middle-aged man and I still am apprenticing myself to people. And the second question is, if you want this to be sustainable, who are you apprenticing? Remember, the DSO is a world-class orchestra and making world-class music. So the idea of them expanding into a product development and distribution company might be a little bit of a far reach for them. And if it is, then the next step is, who do we partner with so that they can be great at what they're great at and we can be great at what we're great at. I think the DSO developed a self-confidence to see how far they could go in a single day. I mean, this was just one day. It wasn't even a full day. And they covered an awful lot of ground.
This is just tremendous. I mean, no matter how these various ideas go forward or don't go forward and which one rises to the top, these ideas are permeating our brains, the three of us, and I know that in different ways they're going to make their way back into the conversations.
If you start looking at innovation in terms of these cycles, the pressure is off. And you realize that you have the capability currently to actually take that first step.
And so thank you again for everything you're doing for our institution.
Can we give a round of applause to the DSO for being great participants? When people come to the Innovatrium, whether we're trying to make a miracle drug or some kind of thing that's going to fly for 50 years or try and help the DSO make a solution, putting all the parts together is always new. And what it really creates for people is this kind of thirst to do it more often. I get that all the time after Jumpstart. How do I do this more? How do I take it back to my company? How do I do it with my family? Right? Okay, you're going to have your own way. You develop your own way of doing this. But the point is, once you start being creative on a regular basis, you're going to want more and more and more. And that's part of the momentum that carries you forward.